Hi all, welcome to Great Learning. Dev C++ is a fully featured graphical integrated development environment that uses WinGW compiler system to create Windows as well as console-based C or C++ application. It was developed by Bloodshed Software. Millions of developers, students and researchers are using Dev C++. It is a free software and is distributed under the general public license. It supports multiple languages and also allows us to edit and compile the resource file. It also provides support for class browser as well as debug variable browser. We can also create our own project templates to create our own project types. Like other IDEs, this IDE also provides auto completion feature for the code that we write. And in this video, we will be knowing about the Dev C++ compiler.
If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like the video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video, any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments. Welcome to this course, Dev C++. So here we'll try to understand why Dev C++, okay, why is it so famous and frequently used IDE for writing the C++ programs, right? And what are the features and what all does this IDE consists of, right? So quickly, let us check the agenda for this course. So first of all, we'll download Dev C++ and check out how to install it, right? And once you have successfully installed, we'll see why Dev C++ IDE is frequently used to write the C++ programs. Fine. And we will check out how the editor looks like. Fine. And once you've seen the editor, we will also check out few keyboard shortcuts because every time using the mouse might delay the compiling and execution of a program, right? So it's good habit to know all the keyboard shortcuts because it will be handy for you to compile and run and other features, right? And then we are going to type in a sample C++ program and see the features of this Dev C++ IDE, right? And lastly, we will also check out few problems which you might face during compilation of your C++ program, right? So without a further ado, let's get started with this Dev C++ course. We'll see how to download Dev C++ IDE and how to install it in our system, right? So let's get started then. First step is you can go to a browser. It could be Chrome, Mozilla, any browser, and then just visit the Google homepage. Okay, so there you can just type Dev C++ download. Right. So once you type this, you will see many options. Right. So there are so many options, but I would prefer to click on this particular option here. Okay. So that is bloodshed.net. Okay. So I'll click on this. So now here, once you scroll down, you can see two options, right? So one is Dev C++ and there is one more version called as Dev C++ 6. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll download the latest version because it is supporting Windows 10. Okay. So based on your requirement, you can download your suitable version. Now, once I click on this, the download will begin. So let me just click on it. So now here, if I click download, okay, so the download has begun. So let's wait until the file is downloaded. Yes, now the download is complete. So let's open the file. So here it is asking you to extract the file, right? So what I'll do is I'll just select the desktop. Okay, so on desktop I'm going to extract it. So I'll click OK. The file is extracted. So on my desktop I have extracted the setup file. Can you see this? So what I'll do is to begin the installation, I'll just double click this particular file. Okay. And then you have to click on yes. So now the installation wizard will be displayed. Okay. right? So you have to select the language, then you have to agree the license agreement, right, before the installation begins. So you have to just click on I agree, okay, and then you have to click on next. So this is the path where you're installing your Dev C++, right? So I'll leave it to the default option, that is C drive, program files, Dev C++. Okay. So I just click on install to begin the installation, right? So the installation has started. Let's wait for it to be completed, right? So we have successfully installed Dev C++, the latest version, onto our system, right? So once you click finish, you'll be able to see the editor, right? So I'm going to select English language. So click on next, right? So you can leave it to default settings. Later you can change it. So I just leave it and click on next. Next. Fine. So this is our Dev C++ IDE, right? So we have successfully downloaded it and we have also installed it successfully onto our system, right? So this is how your Dev C++ IDE looks, right? Now we are in our next topic, which is why Dev C++ IDE, why you have to use it, and why it is the most frequently used IDE for writing C++ programs, right? So first of all, this IDE, that is Dev C++, is a combination of a editor, that is wherein you are going to write your programs. It also includes a compiler. Okay. You can also debug your programs. Okay. That is, once you get any errors or warnings in a program, you can actually remove those. That process is called as a debugging, and you have a debugger in your program. Okay. All right. So Dev C++ provides you with the editor, that is wherein you are going to type in your C++ program, right? So once you have written your C++ program, the next step is you have to make your system understand what your program must do, right? So you are going to write your program in high level language, right? But your computer understands only the low level or machine level language, that is the binary language, right? So for that, what we can do, we have to convert this high level language to machine level language or binary language, right? So for that, we have something called as a compiler. Okay. So what is this compiler? So say for example, you have, two people, say X and Y. Okay. Now this person X understands only English, okay, and this person Y understands only Chinese. All right. So how do they communicate between each other? Okay. So one simple solution is they will hire a translator. Okay, they will hire a translator. So whatever X wants to communicate, he will inform it to the translator, and the translator is going to translate to the language which is Chinese, so that Y can easily understand it, and vice versa. So easily, with the help of this translator, X and Y can communicate, right? So in the same way, we understand or we write programs in high level language. So now that high level program or the code should be converted to machine level code, right? So that your system will understand it and it will process your program and get you the output, right? So for that purpose, we have something called as compiler in our Dev C++ IDE, right? So it is combination of the editor, compiler, and a debugger, right? So compiler plays an important role because ultimately you want to see the output of your program, right? So once you have typed in, it must be translated to machine level, and again back it has to be converted to high level so that you're able to see the output. Fine. So that is the job of this compiler in your Dev C++ IDE. And then assume once you write a program, okay, you might get the output successfully, but in some cases you might have done some small mistakes, right? So once you do any mistakes, the job of a debugger is to highlight those errors or warnings, okay, so that you can remove those errors from your program and your compiler will compile it successfully and you are able to see the output properly. Fine. So all these are present in your Dev C++ IDE. That is the reason it is most frequently used IDE nowadays for writing your C++ program, right? So I hope with this you have understood why we are using Dev C++ IDE. Now what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you the editor compiler in the Dev C++ IDE. So let us quickly jump to the IDE then. All right. So this is your Dev C++ IDE. So here you have so many different options. That is the menu bar. This is where you are going to type in your program. This is your editor. Okay. So let me just type in something. Okay. So this is where you are going to type in your C++ code. And here you have the option for compile, which I've discussed right now. Then once you have compiled it successfully, you can run your program, right? And also you can save your program. There are so many different options. Fine. So I hope with this you have understood why we are using Dev C++ IDE, because it is a combination of an editor or compiler, and if any errors are there, the debugger will tell you what types of errors are present so that you can remove those and execute your program successfully. All right. We'll check how exactly this Dev C++ editor looks like. All right. So quickly, let's jump to the IDE then. So this is how your Dev C++ IDE looks like, right? So this is your menu bar, what you're seeing here, right, on the top. So you have options such as file, wherein you can, create a new source file or open an existing project, you know, and then you have save as, and all the basic options which come under the file menu, right? Next, you have the edit option. So let me just type in something. Okay. So let me write Dev C IDE in the command line, and let me just write a statement here. Okay. Let me just write program, and then I'll select this statement. All right. Now, if I go to edit, can you see all the options are highlighted? Right. So you have cut, you have copy, paste, select all, right? Toggle, comment, so many options which come under the edit menu options. All right. So let me just show you one. So let me just cut it, right? And let me just paste it back. Fine. So this was your edit option. And then we have search. So if you click on this, if you want to find anything inside your code, right, you can do that as well. You also have find in files, then replace, right? So you want to search for something in your code and replace it with something else, right? So you can do that as well. And then you have the next option, which is the view. So for example, here all the options are selected as of now. If you don't want anything, you can just uncheck it. All right. So let me just keep it to default. And then if you go here, you have options such as new file, add to project, remove from project, right? And then comes your compile and run, rebuild, all those options under the execute option, right? Under the execute menu. And then we'll come to tools. Okay. Now with this, you can play a lot. So say, for example, first you have the compiler option. So suppose if you want to, configure different compiler, okay, you can do that here. Fine. Let me just keep it to default. Next option is the environment options. Okay. So here you have the general options, the general settings, then the directory where you want to store your current directory. You can change that here. And then one more important thing here is what type of file do you want to associate it with this Dev C++ ID, right? So the tick ones are the selected ones. So we have C, C++, C header file, all these. So whichever is ticked will be associated with your Dev C++ ID. And then last option is the Windows appearance, right? So can you see here Windows 10 is selected. So if I select this slate gray, if I select blue whale, if I select black pearl, let me show you this. So if I click on OK, so can you see here the appearance of our ID has changed, right? Because we edited this appearance. We chose this option called as black pearl, right? So similarly, you can choose, different options here, right? So if I click on this, we'll get something different, right? Next, let me go to this editor options. Okay, so if you click on this, you have the general settings over here. Okay, and then one more important thing is if the font size is very small, if you feel the words are very very small, so what you can do is you can come to this option here, that is fonts. Okay, and increase the size. Okay, so let me make it 14. Okay, so can you see here the size has increased, the font size, right? So those settings you can do it here. Click on under tools, you have editor options. Under that you have fonts. Okay, so let me just make it 12. You can change the font as well, right? So if you want, you can choose something else, right? So the standard thing is we keep it to default usually. So what I'll do is I'll go back, I'll keep it the same. Okay, yeah, better. And then you can configure the shortcuts. Okay, the default shortcuts, if you want to change it to something else, okay, you can do that as well. Fine. And then you have the window menu option, that is if you want to close all the windows full screen. Okay, so you can press Ctrl plus F11, right? And then obviously you have the help option. Okay, so these are the options present in your Dev C++ IDE, guys. All right. So similarly, once you write your code, you'll understand how exactly these options work. Fine. So this is where you are going to write in your code. This is where you are going to compile and run your program. Okay, and all the options such as you saving your file, once you update it, the cut, copy, paste, all those options are present over here. Fine. So you need not worry about anything while you're writing your program. Fine. So I hope with this you have understood how a Dev C++ IDE looks and what all options do you have under the menu bar for this Dev C++ IDE. Now we are going to check out few keyboard shortcuts in our Dev C++ IDE, right? So which will help you when you are done with writing your program so that you can quickly compile and run your programs and different other shortcuts as well. So we have our Dev C++ IDE here. So quickly, let me just write a sample program for you. So hash include IO stream and then using name space std, and then we have our main function, and then I'm going to simply display some content of a variable. So let me use a is equal to 100. Okay, and then cout, let me print that, and let me also print a statement such as keyboard shortcuts. Okay, in Dev C++. Fine. So we have typed our sample program. Now, what are the most commonly used keyboard shortcuts? Okay, so the first thing is file and save, right? So the shortcut is Control plus S, right? Or if you want to save it with a different name, you can do that as well. Okay, so the shortcut to save is Control plus S. Fine. And then the most frequently used is, after writing your program, the most important thing is it has to be compiled. Once you have successfully compiled, you can run your program, right? So the shortcut to compile is F9. Okay, and to run your program, the shortcut is F10, and to compile and run, the shortcut is F11. So these three are most frequently used. So suppose if I want to just compile it, okay, sorry, I pressed F11, so it is displaying the output, right? So suppose if I want to just compile it, okay, I am going to press F9, the shortcut. So there are 0 errors and 0 warnings. Fine, I'm going to close it. And if I press F10, the program is going to run. Fine. And if I want to compile and run, I have the shortcut F11. So it's going to compile and then run the program. And now you can see the output successfully on the screen. Fine. Now, what are different other shortcuts? So let me just select this particular statement over here and go to edit. Fine. And then if you want, you can cut it, so let me just cut it. And if I go here, if I undo it, so what are the shortcuts for these? So for cut, it is Control X. For copying, it is Control C. For pasting, it is Control V. So let me use Control X. Okay. And let me paste it over here. So Control V. Fine. So this time if I run the program, it is going to display this statement first, and then it is going to display the number 100. Fine. So to save, I'm going to press Control S. Now to run or compile and run, the shortcut is F11. Let me press that. So can you see here? First the statement is being displayed, that is keyboard shortcuts, and then the number 100. Fine. So that is the shortcut to edit. Fine. Similarly, to undo, you can use this option, that is Control C. So suppose if I want everything back to the same stuff. Okay. So can you see here? So again, if I want, I can redo. So the shortcut is Control Y. Right. So that is how you can use the keyboard shortcuts in your Dev C++. Now, what are few more shortcuts which might help you? Right. So here, if you see, if you want full screen, you can press Control plus F11. Okay. So sometimes you want your editor to cover full of your screen. So that point of time, you can use Control plus F11. Okay. And then you can also toggle between different screens, that is Control plus Tab. And if you want the previous screen or the tab, you can use Shift plus Control plus Tab. Fine. So let me just type in one more statement over here to display the content of the variable A. Fine. Now once select this, okay, there are so many other shortcuts. Fine. And one more important thing, if you want to change the keyboard shortcuts, you don't like, F9 to compile, F10 to run. So what you can do is you can go to this option under tools, configure shortcuts. Okay. So can you see here? So to open a new file, the shortcut is Control plus N. Okay. And to open an existing file, Control plus O. And to save, Control plus S. So if you don't like these shortcuts, you can always change those. Alright. So that option is also present. I'll just leave it to default. So I'll click cancel. Alright. So these are the few important shortcuts which you are going to use when you're working on Dev C++ IDE. Okay. So the most common ones are F9, F7 and F11. Right. So lastly, let me just press F11. It's going to compile and run, and you can see the output here. Fine. So I hope with this you have understood all the common keyboard shortcuts when you're working on Dev C++ IDE. Now we are in our sample C++ program. So here we'll try to see how to type in a C++ program in a Dev C++ editor and compile and execute it as well. Right. So let's quickly jump to the Dev C++ IDE. Yes. So here we'll type in our sample C++ program. So this part, what you see over here is the editor space. Okay. And here you have your options for different menu, right? So here is a file, that is your open save. And here you have your compile and run options. So what I'll do is, so I'll quickly change this options, okay, to something like this. Okay, let me select this. Okay, so that it will be easy for you to see the options, right? So to type in our first program, what we need is the header file, right? So hash include IO stream. Now let me just comment it. So this is the header file required, and then I'm going to type in my main function. Now these font size, okay, what is present is slightly lower, right? It's not visible clearly. So what I'll do is I'll go to this editor options, font. I'll slightly increase my font size to 12. Okay. So now let me increase it to one more size. So let me make it 13. Yes. Okay. So here let me just display some message. So first C++ program using Dev C++ IDE. Fine. And then I'll end it with a semicolon. Now, one more thing what we need is using namespace std. Right? So after typing your program, the next thing is to save your program before running, right? So for that, what you can do, go to file, click on save or save as, and here you have to type in the name for your program. So let me just give it first program. Okay, first program, and then this is the extension. So I want to save it as a C++ file. So I'll click on C++ and then click on save. So this is the path where the programs will be stored. So you can choose any path, right? So I'll save it here. Fine. So once it is saved, if I make any updates to this particular code, then all I have to do is just press Ctrl S. All right, and it will be automatically saved. Now to compile and run your program, what we have here is compile, run, and there is one more option, compile and run, right? So first let me just click on compile. Okay, so can you see here there are 0 errors and 0 warnings. Fine. So now if I click on run, the program is executed successfully and it is displaying the message first C++ program using Dev C++ IDE. Fine. Now, if you don't want to compile and run separately, you have one more option, that is compile and run both simultaneously. All right. So first it will be compiled and then your program is going to run. So for that, you also have a shortcut, that is F11. Okay. So let me use F11 this time. Right. So the program was compiled and also it's running once you press F11. So it is displaying the message as well. So I'll just close this. So let me type in another statement. Okay, so let me just display a value. Okay, so for that, C out, and it is there in I. Yes. Okay, so after this I'm going to use /n. Now I have updated my program, so I have to press Control S. So the program is automatically saved. Now I'm going to press F11. So can you see here? First C++ program using Dev C IDE, and on the next line we have the value of the variable I, which is 10. That is also being displayed. So this is how you are going to type in a C++ program in a Dev C IDE, and once you have typed, you can save your program in any path whichever you like, and once you've saved it, you can also compile it and run it. Fine. Now there are few more things which will help you when you're writing a C++ program. That is, suppose if I want to move this line somewhere else in my code. Okay, so for that you can go to the edit option. So here you have cut, copy, paste, the basic edit operation, right? So I'm just going to cut it. So this time I want to display the value of I first, and then I want to display this particular statement. So for that I'm going to edit and paste, right? So I pasted it here. So what I have to do once I've updated my program, I have to save it. So Control plus S. Or you can also go and here, click here and click on save. Fine, anything is fine. Now I have to run, I have to press F11. So can you see here? 10 and then the statement, right? So if you want to print it properly, what you can do is here you can write /n. Fine. So again, save your program, press F11. So 10, and on the next line it is printing the statement, that is first C++ program. Fine. So I hope with this you have understood how to type a sample C++ program in the Dev C IDE, how to compile it, how to execute it, and how to perform the basic edit operations in your code. Alright. Problems during compilation. So here we'll try to understand what all problems you will face when you are compiling your C++ program. Alright, so let's quickly jump to the Dev C IDE and then let's check out the problems during compilation. So here in this Dev C editor, I'm going to type in the program first. So this is just, I'm going to write a comment, my program, and then #include IO stream, the header file, and then the main function. Okay, and then I'm going to simply display a content. Okay, so let me display hello world. Fine. Now what is the next step? Next step is you have to go save your program, and then the next step is compile, right? So if I click on compile, what all problems I might face? See, the program is fine. I have the header file IOStream. I have the main function. I have typed a statement which I want to display on the output screen. So now if I click on compile, so can you see here? So I've got an error. Cout was not declared in the scope. Okay, so it is giving an error for the cout. So to solve this error, what you have to do is you have to add one more line, that is using namespace std. So without this, you are going to get this error, right? So this is the first and common error you would get during your compilation if you have missed this particular statement. Okay, so now let me just close it. Let me save it by pressing Ctrl plus S. Now, if I go and compile it, do you see there are no errors and no warnings? Fine. So now can I go and run the program? Yes. So it has successfully ran and we are able to see the output, that is hello world. Now, what other problems you might face during compilation? Now, suppose you have missed this particular statement semicolon here and we have one more line to display. So let me just type in line 2. Okay, and let me save it. Now, if I try to compile and run it, okay, so can you see here expected semicolon before the statement here, right? So here your compiler is expecting a semicolon. So these are all common problems which you face when you're going to compile, right? So any warnings or errors, the compiler will tell you and you are going to debug it, and again you're going to save and run your program so that your program will run without any problems. Fine. So now I'm going to save it. Now let me make a few more things. Okay, so if I forgot to give this, all right, and then here I'm going to remove one arrow. Okay, so let me change it back. Okay, and let's see what will happen now. Okay, all I've done is just removed one angular bracket here, right, for cout. So if I compile it, can you see here so many, what are these errors or warnings, right? So error, no match for operator, single angular bracket, right? So what I have to do, I have to give in two angular brackets. Similarly, if I remove this, let's see what will happen, whether we are going to get a warning or an error. So I'm going to compile it. So again we are going to get an error. Cout was not declared in this scope because cout is related to this particular statement what we have written here, right? So like this you might face different syntax errors or warnings when you are trying to compile. So all you have to do is go and check to that particular line in your code and make that line error free and then save and run your program, all right, so that you are going to run your program without any complications. Fine. So I hope with this you have understood the basic problems which you might face during compilation of your C++ program. So let's summarize whatever we have seen so far. So we started with downloading of Dev C IDE, right? And we have also seen how to install Dev C IDE, right? And then we have seen concepts such as compiler, debugger, and the editor, right? So how you can type in your program in the Dev C IDE and how these options will help you successfully run your program, right? So editor is nothing but wherein you are going to type the program. Compiler is nothing but a translator which will translate program written in high level language to the machine level language, and the debugger tool will help you with the errors in your program if any. Fine. And then we have also seen the menu bar present in the IDE wherein we have so many options, that is to save your file, to compile, to execute, the editor options, you can increase and decrease the font size, the themes, many other things. And then we also saw some important keyboard shortcuts. So the most frequently used shortcuts were the compile and running your program, right? So we have seen those as well. Lastly, we also came across the problems which you might face when you are compiling your program, right? So how a debugger will help you understand the problems during compilation, and how do you go to that particular statement and debug your code and run your program successfully. All right. Thank you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I want to request you to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications bell so that you don't miss out on any new updates or video releases from Great Learning. If you enjoyed this video, show us some love and like the video. Knowledge increases by sharing, so make sure you share this video with your friends and colleagues. Make sure to comment on the video, any queries or suggestions, and I will respond to your comments.